It involves a great deal of your subjective opinion based on your experience treating dog wounds, doesn't it?
You know, with all due respect, Mr. Brennan, I'm not somebody that just came in off the street. If I saw something in the Boston Globe, and Mr. Brennan, I wasn't following the case at all.
They don't line up. They're not even. It's backwards.
It would be an odd configuration.
Well, odd. It would be like Ripley's Believe It or Not. The dog would have to have their teeth the opposite way.
The dog bite theory could be coming back as the judge in the Karen Reed case is allowing a notable defense witness in. But Her Honor's notes seem to say, do it at your own risk. Plus, a mother of two found dead in a refrigerator at a state park, and now her boyfriend is facing some charges. We're catching you up on the case of Laura Hughes. Also this hour, we're unpacking the deposition of Robert Adelson, how Mama Donna's oldest and estranged son could affect her upcoming trial. Plus, a mother admits to trespassing in order to get justice for her murdered daughter. The testimony of this mom investigator could be tipping the scales in the Tennessee trial of Jason Chen. It's all coming up next for you, plus much more right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you. Thanks for waking up with us here on Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. Are you ready for what we call some coffee and court around here? We got a great show planned, so let's get it going. Go ahead and grab that cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. Sometimes there's no punishment that fits the crime. When the crime is unspeakable, no punishment feels like enough. And I'm feeling that way about the person who broke the legs of those precious, innocent, defenseless, premature NICU infant boys. Can you imagine the pain and the suffering that those babies went through? Thinking about just how badly it must have hurt them makes me want to cry. It also makes me want to break every bone on the body of the person responsible. Police say that it was 26-year-old former nurse Erin Strotman who did this. That's what police say. She's now facing one felony charge for malicious wounding and one felony charge for child abuse, because so far she's only charged with respect to one baby injured back in November. But police say they have identified 7 baby victims, and they say even more could be identified because the investigation is far from over. So more charges for this woman may come. And what I'm wondering this morning is, what kind of defense is Ms. Strotman going to present? Because I can't think of anything that would explain this. This is unconscionable. I hope and I pray that all of those little babies and their families get justice. And I hope and I pray that they don't have any lasting effects from those fractures. The only long-term thing that I want to see is life in prison for their abuser. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Do you have a clear memory of shooting Matthews and Trisha? No. Did you shoot? Yeah. Did you want to shoot? No.
All right, here's what we've got cooking today for you, my friends. We've got closing arguments set to begin today in the murder trial for that guy you just saw, Victor Rivera. You saw him take the stand on Monday. Arguments are going to kick off around 10 a.m. Eastern time. This is in New Hampshire, so we'll keep you posted when that begins. In Tennessee, we've got testimony resuming in the murder trial for Jason Chen. That's going to happen at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. And in Florida, we've got the newest trial to court TV set to begin. This one is called the Forgetful Grandmother Manslaughter Trial, or at least that's what we're calling it here on Court TV. The defendant is a woman named Tracy Nix, and this lady is accused in the hot car death of her 7-month-old granddaughter. That's going to start off this morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, so we'll go in live together when it begins. Right now, we want to turn to our top story for you. It was a win for Karen Reed and her defense team on Monday as the court announced that the dog bite expert that the defense wants to introduce Dr. Marie Russell can testify in defendant Karen Reed's retrial. Now, Russell testified, you'll remember, for a 2-day-long what's called a Daubert hearing. It's a legal challenge to see if she's even qualified to give testimony because the defense brought her in during the last trial, and her opinion is that wounds on victim Officer John O'Keefe's arm came from a dog attack. The prosecution says no way that happened. There was no canine DNA even on his body. They say that Karen Reed hit him with her car, hit him, and left him there to die in the snow. Now, the defense team maintains that these injuries were from a dog attack. Let's take a listen to some of what Marie Russell said in that Daubert hearing recently.
You see that this here, 2 teeth, if the dog's canines started here and worked their way down this way, they don't line up. They're not even. It's backwards.
It would be an odd configuration.
Well, odd. It would be like Ripley's Believe It or Not. The dog would have to have their teeth the opposite way.
No, I could see how that could happen.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that was a boom, drop the mic moment there for attorney Hank Brennan. He's a special prosecutor brought in to try this case, and he was on fire during that hearing. That was just a little taste of what he's going to do. So the big question remains this morning. Okay, so Dr. Marie Russell can come in, but should she come in? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I have 2 great attorney guests standing by to help me work through that question. Let me bring them in now. Criminal defense attorney in Boston. He's a former prosecutor as well, attorney Joe Chrisley, and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor too in Maryland, standing by, Randolph Rice. Good morning to you both. All right, Joe Chrisley, to you first, please. What do you think the defense should do now that they've got this ruling?
I think what the defense should do, and what they've probably already done, is order those transcripts. You've called it a victory for the defense. Keep in mind, they were already able to call Dr. Russell in the first trial. They had to work a lot harder to do it this time. To the extent it's a victory, it's a Pyrrhic one at best. And you can bet these attorneys are experienced. They're ordering that transcript, and they're going to go through it carefully, because there's 8 hours of testimony, and there are some really, really damaging concessions that their expert had to make. Look, on balance, the judge got it right, because you want to err on the side of allowing defendants to present their case. But you just showed a clip about the direction of the so-called wounds. That was just one of many dozens of damaging pieces of information that Prosecutor Brennan was able to get the so-called expert to concede on. So, look, they can call her if they want, but they've got a lot of thinking to do. And I'm sure that it's not going to be an easy decision. It's probably going to be a game time decision.
Ooh, I like that call, Joe Chrisley. Yeah, it may be a game time decision depending on how this thing goes. And I like what you said also about concessions that this witness had to make. Hank Brennan did a masterful job boxing her in with her own testimony, her own contradictions, and then bringing to light that she didn't review key pieces of evidence before arriving at that opinion. So let's take a look at that clip together now.
And when you were considering that information, did you know from the criminalistics reports that shards of that broken tail light were littered in his sweater?
I did not know that.
When's the first time you learned of that?
Right now.
Okay, so she acknowledged that she didn't know anything about the shards of Karen Reed's broken tail light found in John O'Keefe's clothing. Said that was a surprise. Let's look at what Judge Beverly Cannone wrote in her opinion. Randolph Rice, I want to ask you about this. So the last paragraph of the judge's decision on this, she writes, Dr. Russell's expertise primarily concerns the treatment, not the identification of dog bites, and that her evaluation of the abrasions failed to consider all available information. And that's, i.e., the clip we just saw, right? Judge Cannone goes on to say that She has not compared the abrasions with the dentition of the German Shepherd in question, that's Chloe, and that her opinion is inconsistent with findings that there was no canine DNA in the area of the victim's clothing near the abrasions. However, the court concludes that these issues go to the weight of Dr. Russell's testimony, not its admissibility, and can be addressed during cross-examination at trial. Randolph Rice, what do you think, just hearing that paragraph there about what the judge thinks of Dr. Russell?
Well, Julie, I think you're exactly right. This is a win for the defense, but I think, remember, this hearing was about admissibility, not credibility. And what the judge was doing was she was giving a roadmap. And listen, the prosecutor, Mr. Brennan, he doesn't need one, apparently, from that hearing because he was spot on with his questions, but it was I'm going to let her in. I'm going to let her testify about the dog bites and her expertise on dog bites. But I'm giving you this roadmap of, look, you can attack her credibility as to the testimony as it lines up with the other facts, for example, the brake light shards in the jacket. So the judge was, I think, hinting. She was saying, look, I'm giving the win to the defense here, but I'm hinting to the state, here are the things that you need to argue at trial.
Randolph, thank you. Great points. Joe Krowski, back to you, please. What about Dr. Russell's testimony through this two-day Daubert hearing that I know you watched closely? What about it surprised you the most when you were seeing her just be eviscerated on that cross by Hank Brennan?
A couple of things stood out. One, her default position was pattern recognition, and I think she had been coached to say that, and that shows that she is someone that has spent her career treating wounds, not diagnosing the cause of so-called dog bite wounds. And she conceded that in isolation, looking at any one of the specific injuries, she couldn't classify what it actually was. But what really stood out to me is she seemed almost disinterested in the availability of access to the dog. Remember, one of the great linchpins of the Free Karen Reed movement, the conspiracy movement, was that they had offed this dog that had caused these injuries. Well, it came out at that hearing that the dog, Chloe, is alive and well. The government has examined Chloe. It looks like they've made dentition molds, and Dr. Russell seemed disinterested in having access to the dog. Now, if you talk to people that actually specialize in actually diagnosing whether or not an injury is from a dog and matching it up, that's one of the first things that they would do.
Right. Great points, Joe. Joe, another thing, please, regarding Hank Brennan, I thought that was so impressive that he was so far ahead of the defense that he actually went to see Chloe, had the molds taken, all of that. What do you think his next move is going to be? Now, with this ruling, tell me what you think the Commonwealth will do to be prepared if the defense does call Dr. Russell.
Well, Dr. Russell, as you deftly said, is boxed into a corner there, and I did watch the hearing closely. There's about 8 hours or 10 hours of testimony, and her testimony's already evolved from the original voir dire to trial, now to this Daubert in Massachusetts. We call it a Lanigan hearing. So he's got her in black and white on transcript, again, with a lot of these concessions and a lot of things. What's important, not just what she did, what she didn't do. For this differential diagnosis to rule out other causes, there was a wealth of information, thousands of pages of it, and she's now conceded she formed her opinion without considering any of that information. So what Attorney Brennan's going to do, I'm sure he anticipated this ruling, because this is generally the way these rulings go, but like both sides, he's probably got that transcript ready and willing to use it at trial.
Right, Joe. Joe, you know, listening to the points you've made, the points Randolph's made, and thinking about this closely, yes, the defense might have got the ruling that they wanted, but really at the end of this battle, it was Hank Brennan who got the legal win because he boxed her in and he got those answers on the trial transcript that he can impeach her with if she contradicts herself at the trial. So we'll see what the next thing is. I know that the next big thing we're going to be talking about is the cell phone Google searches, because that's going to be the next battle taken up, and I want you both back on for that discussion for sure. Joe Krowski, I know we've got to let you go, get off to court. Thank you for your expertise and your time this morning. We'll see you soon. Randolph Rice is coming along with us. We want you to do the same at home. When we return, we're talking about the Adelsons family back in the headlines.
You're making a mistake. It's another mistake. It's two mistakes.
Talking about what new court documents say about Mama Donna's estranged son. Did you know there's another sibling besides Charlie and Wendy? That's right, we're talking about him next. And a mother of two, her body found in an abandoned refrigerator at a state park. Her boyfriend's under arrest. How does he explain all of this? We'll discuss it next.
How we doing, guys? We're good? Okay.
You're on very shaky ground.
That is unreal.
People wanted answers, and people started locking their doors.
I did not do it to hurt anybody.
You know what it means. You know what you did, right?
Please hear me out. Please. This was a real-life soap opera.
I said, OJ, everybody thinks you're guilty.
Now, for what's trending in true crime, officials have identified the remains found in a refrigerator as a New Jersey mother of two. It was 50-year-old Laura Hughes, seen here with her boyfriend, Christopher Blevins. Family members say that Laura moved to New Jersey about 2 years ago to be closer to her two daughters. Blevins has since surrendered to police for his suspected connection to her death. Hughes' remains were recovered in Belle Plaine State Forest in December and identified due to her tattoos. Now, authorities say that the two had a history of domestic violence as well as drug and alcohol abuse. Blevins has not yet been charged in Hughes' death. Now, this morning, we're asking, how does the boyfriend explain this away? Let's bring in our guests and get some thoughts now. Still with me, attorney Randolph Rice. Want to welcome in attorney Melba Pearson and private investigator Manuel Gomez. Boyfriend here has some explaining to do, and as we understand it, the charges aren't yet homicide charges. They could be. What do we think boyfriend might say? Melba Pearson, would you start us off with your thoughts, please?
Well, good morning, and I think that he's going to try and say that it wasn't me. I don't know how this happened. I was drunk in a bar fight. I don't know where my girlfriend was. I was nowhere involved. But it's pretty hard for him to say that with, number one, them having that prior history of domestic violence. Not to say that 100% means he's the person that did it, but clearly if there's a history of violence between the two of them and he has abused him in the past, it's highly likely that he is the one that caused her demise. Secondly, the fact that he fled right after her disappearance. Again, innocent people generally don't run. Generally. There are, of course, exceptions, but in this type of situation, again, why are you fleeing? So he's going to try to go down the rabbit hole. If it wasn't me, the evidence, I'm sure, is going to end up leading straight to his doorstep. Great points, Melba. Thank you for all of that. Randolph Rice, to you next, please. What do you think boyfriend may say?
I think Melba makes some great points there, and she's exactly right in the fact that what he did after the fact, that's what really is going to probably put the nail in the coffin for him. However, there are some concerns about the individual that found the body. The detectives are looking at him as well because he seemed a bit squirrely when they approached him and tried to get some evidence. So maybe there's some sort of interaction between the suspected boyfriend who could have done this, who fled to Mexico, and this other individual who found her body in this refrigerator in the state park. So this is one that I think the detectives are going to take their time. They're going to make sure they have all the pieces of the puzzle put together before they charge who they think did this.
Right. Great points, Randolph. Thank you. Manuel Gomez, last but not least, want to know your thoughts on this. Boy, would I love to see you in a room with this guy doing the interrogation. Talk to us, Manuel. What do you think?
Well, you know, Julie, this case personifies the national procedural law enforcement problem we have when it comes to missing persons. Right now, in this case, they reported her missing back in August, and really the police department didn't really respond until much, much, much later on. And the reason why is because if you are 13 years or under or mentally incapacitated or the elderly, police department will respond immediately to a missing person. But if you're over 18 years of age and you can't show them immediately that foul play was done, they just take a police report and put it to the side. And this is why Laura Hughes' body took so long to be found in the refrigerator. All right, and she's not the only one. You have Chrisley Jefferson, Pittsburgh, found in the refrigerator. Melissa Money, found in the refrigerator in Texas. You have Heather Schwab in LA, found in the refrigerator, okay? And the reason all these women, I say their names, is because they have in common that they were reported missing and no action was taken. And I hope in this case that this is a final example for law enforcement to change their protocol so that we stop wasting time and start saving lives and react when somebody's reported missing.
Manuel, thank you so much for saying the names of those victims. Thank you for that. Great insight. We're going to leave this case here for now because we have another trending story we want to get to. A reality TV star is finding himself in hot water this morning after allegedly assaulting a bar manager.
This is so good. Oh my God.
Savannah, give me a bite. Every time I'm eating, you always want a bite of mine. I give it to you.
Fun. You're gonna take the whole thing?
Thanks.
Oh, no problem.
You want some of my steak?
Yeah.
You should order one.
Are you serious?
Yes, there is more legal trouble for the Chrisley family. Chase Chrisley, to be specific, who many know from the show Chrisley Knows Best. Well, Chase was arrested for battery on January 6th in Atlanta. Police say the 28-year-old slapped the manager of Twin Peaks restaurant twice after being asked to leave the bar. Now, Chase was soon released on a $10,000 bond. His parents, Todd and Julie Chrisley, are both locked up. They're serving prison sentences for bank fraud and tax evasion. So the question we're asking our power panel this morning, should Chase Chrisley have known better? Randolph Rice, let me start with you, please.
You know, Julie, part of me thinks this may be a PR stunt because the spotlight has not been on him for a little bit, that he wanted to do some things to get his name back in the headlines, and that a simple assault charge might be worth getting your name back, out in front of the public. But I'll put my defense attorney hat on and I say, if he comes to my office today, I want to get you into alcohol education and treatment. I want to talk about how it's been not having your parents around as a guiding light for you for the past 3 years. And we're going to talk about how you haven't had that structure that's allowed you or helped you make good decisions in life.
Oh, this is good stuff, Randolph. Good stuff. And to your first point, was he looking for a moment? I never thought of that. That's a fair question. Should he have known better? A kid that apparently had cameras on him, through much of his life. I like that. Manuel Gomez, your thoughts on this, please.
I agree with Randolph. I do believe that this was a potential stunt. We had an actor, and I forget his name, but he was African-American, and he stated that he was raped and everything else. And what happened, it turned out to be a lie. I think this is just like another Karen Huger case, which is, he thought that he's above the law because of his fame and fortune, and he can do what he wants. We have to hold them accountable. No one is above the law, regardless of your status or wealth.
Right.
And we need to set an example.
Right, so true. Yeah, regardless of what the reason or motivation was, you don't get to slap somebody. Apparently, the allegation is that he slapped the manager twice after he was asked to leave the establishment. Melba Pearson, want to get your thoughts on this. What do you think? Should Chase Chrisley have known better?
Absolutely, he should have known better. He's a grown man, 28 years old. You know you shouldn't be slapping someone. And just to also piggyback on my colleague's point, he's talking about the Jussie Smollett case where he alleged that he was a victim of a hate crime and that he was beaten and that was called racial slurs, alleged that that was a publicity stunt. Clearly, it did not go well for him. Chase should have taken a page out of that book and not gone in that direction if, in fact, it was a publicity stunt. I just think he was an entitled brat.
Great analysis from you all. Melba, Manuel, Randolph, thank you all so much. And Randolph, I know we have to say goodbye to you, let you get off to court. Thank you for your time and insight. We'll see you soon. Still ahead here on Opening Statements, we're talking about the deposition of the estranged Adelson son. Yes, did you know that there's another sibling besides Charlie and Wendy? Yes, they have a brother, and he gave a deposition. We're breaking it down. Plus, a mother so desperate to find her missing daughter, she admitted to breaking and entering the daughter's boyfriend's home. Could her testimony tip the scales of justice in the trial of Jason Chen?
what led you to apartment 210? The neighbor said that he heard a woman scream, and Jason's apartment door was the only one that someone didn't answer.
Welcome back. This morning, we're shining the spotlight in the upcoming murder trial for Mama Donna Adelson and the role that her eldest son could play. Now, we know her kids, Charlie and Wendy, but a lot less is known about their big brother. Yes, they have a brother. There's another Adelson sibling. His name is Rob Adelson, and Rob has been estranged from the rest of the family for a long time. And we're going to get to why the estrangement in just a moment, but want to get to some big legal news with him because he gave a deposition last fall, and his testimony was the focus of a closed-door hearing after the defense team filed a motion to either limit or totally exclude his testimony from coming into the trial. Now, the defense believes that the state was wanting to show that Rob Adelson believes that his mother is guilty. I want to bring in now my friend and colleague, and we joke, but a lot of truth is said in jest. We call her our resident Adelson expert, Julia Janae, who was there in Florida sitting through these trials. I mean, you followed it from the inception. I can remember not long after we relaunched in 2019, were we hearing the Adelson name, and at that point, none of the Adelsons were charged yet. But so you go way back.
A long time before they were even involved. Yeah. But yeah, Rob Adelson is someone that we don't hear a lot about. He's never testified on the stand during any of the trials, but he is a part of this family. He's the oldest son, as you mentioned. He's a doctor. You have a lot of professionals in this family. And here's a look at the unindicted co-conspirators from back before. We know Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson now both indicted. Charlie Adelson has been convicted, but prosecutors haven't ever said anything about Rob Adelson because he's not a part of this in their mind. But where he falls is that he's older than Wendy and Charles, and of course the victim in this case, Dan Markell, was married to Wendy Adelson, all these children of Donna and Harvey, and Donna Adelson is the one that is going to trial in June, according to what the trial schedule is right now. And another reason we don't hear a lot from him is because he doesn't speak publicly about this. But he did once in a podcast, the Over My Dead Body podcast, that focused on this case. And in it, he talked about his strained relationship with his family, with his parents, because back when he was an intern for his medical degree, he fell in love with someone that he met, and they were totally against the relationship because she wasn't Jewish. That's something that we saw during the investigation into Dan Markell and Wendy Adelson, of course, because of this conflict they had over him being so Orthodox and wanting to follow certain traditions that they didn't approve of. But that happened between Rob Adelson and his now wife. They broke up at first over the parents saying, no, we'll disown you if you stay with this woman. After the breakup, they then reunited years later, and Rob Adelson said his parents did attend their traditional Hindu wedding at that time, and he believed that his parents at that time were trying to make things better, trying to work on that relationship, and it's after that that Dan Markell was killed.
Oh, wow, Julia. So now we may get to see Rob, as you have flagged something for us at Court TV, and thank you for coming on here to really break it down. There's a legal fight going on over Rob's deposition. He gave a deposition in Florida. That happens in criminal cases, and it's been sealed by the court, unsealed, sealed again. We think this is going to be a huge fight. Would you kind of break down the why behind that?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things that they are not going to get into when he gets on the stand because it's so objectionable, according to the defense, and the court agrees on some things. Now, they have to ask those very narrow questions because they can't get into character, opinion. What does he think about his mom? You mentioned it. He may believe that she could be involved in this, and if the jury thinks that, the judge says that is prejudicial. So a lot from that deposition is not coming in, but the court does say that there are some things that stray the line of fact and opinion. We know that Rob Adelson told police when they were investigating some opinions that he had about his family. He brought it to their attention. But there's also this question of whether or not she was an over-involved mom, Donna Adelson. And Wendy Adelson was asked about that when she was on the stand during her brother's trial. By the way, Rob was on the witness list for Charlie's trial, but he was not called. Let's listen back to what Wendy Adelson had to say.
Danny
So in this, again, your mom is referencing how everyone's life is being affected by this relocation, including your brother, Charlie. Do you agree with that?
That is what she said, yes.
All right. Is your mom overprotective of you?
Yes.
All right. And is it fair to say she's, a little on the controlling side?
I don't think she's controlling, but she's definitely overprotective.
So we may hear something similar to that from Rob Adelson when he's on the stand, but the court's saying he's got to lay the foundation, or the attorneys have to lay the foundation to show that he would have knowledge of how overly involved she was in Wendy's life and in Charlie's.
Sure. So, Julia, to be very clear here, we're going to see Rob, are we not? Or at least we think we're going to see him in this trial for Donna.
We certainly anticipated. We were anticipating him for Charlie's trial because he was on the witness list and not called. But one could argue that he's a lot more important to the storyline now that his mother is the one on trial, and he has apparently observations. What we learned in this deposition hearing transcript that was unsealed, sealed again, is that he has a very strong opinion about not only her, that may not come in, but she may have made admissions to him. And the prosecution said, we're going to ask him about those admissions and any observations he has, any personal knowledge. And here's a look at some more of that transcript where the prosecutor says, I was going to ask him, is Donna Adelson pretty sharp? Is she someone who is gullible? And his response in the deposition was, no, she's not someone who's gullible or could pull the wool over their eyes easily. The defense came back and said that, no, it was a lot more inflammatory than that. She actually, or rather Rob actually said that if there's anyone who puts their interest before anyone else, it's Donna Adelson.
Oh.
Now, the defense doesn't want that in.
Oh,
of course.
You're not right, my friend?
Not like that.
Julia, Janae, thank you for all of this, for breaking this down. I know we'll be talking a lot more about the Adelsons as Mama Donna's trial approaches. We know this trial is happening in Florida, and I want to bring in our legal analyst guest now, attorney Melba Pearson. She is a professor at Florida International University, former homicide prosecutor. Melba, to you now, please. So in this hearing, attorney Robert Morris, who was later disqualified as the Adelson's attorney, said that Rob Adelson's description of his mom is inflammatory, saying, quote, it was that there's no person who places their own interest first or something like that than Donna Adelson. Okay. Melba, what do you think happens here? How much do you think Rob is going to be able to share about his opinion of his dear old mother?
Yeah, so as much as he may have these very strong opinions about his mother, all of that is not going to be able to come in. The prosecution is going to have to walk a very fine line in being able to elicit direct observations, direct admissions that his mother made, or maybe actions that she took in terms of his sister Wendy and maybe trying to meddle in her relationship. There is possibly a lane for the prosecution to get out the fact that the mother, Donna, has meddled in Rob's relationship, as evidenced by the estrangement. But again, that's going to have to be very, very narrow, because it has to be tied to, number one, the homicide. Number two, you can't just get into bad character evidence and just say she's an awful person and she just destroys everyone's life. You need to have much more connection to the actual incident. So, and then of course there's that little issue out there about the unnamed racial slur. And now that we know more context in terms of the fact that Rob ended up in an interracial relationship, that kind of leads you to believe that she may also hold racist views, which is something that, again, could be highly prejudicial if the jury hears that. And they may think, well, absolutely, then if she's capable of having these thoughts, then she clearly is capable of committing a homicide.
Oh my, Melba. And so to be clear, so there's something apparently in this transcript that's been now resealed, so we can't see, but something where, if you know, Melba, is it something that Donna is alleged to have said that was racially inflammatory, a racial slur that came from her?
That is correct. Based on what has been said in the transcripts and everything that's been available, there was an unnamed racial slur that Donna Adelson was alleged to have made, and Rob made mention to that in his deposition. We don't know what it is. We don't know in what context, but we do know that defense counsel was like, absolutely, this is not something that should come in case in chief. And, you know, from a legal perspective, I agree, because again, how is that relevant to the marriage of, you know, Wendy and, you know, the victim, Mr. Merkel, and how does that make it more or less likely that she is the person that, you know, committed this crime? Now, of course, beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard, but again, just thinking through for the jury's sort of like logic and their deliberations, what does her using a racial slur add to this particular homicide? I don't think it adds much. It just shows that she may be an awful human being, but it does not necessarily mean she is the murderer.
Right, Melba. A great legal explainer. Professor, as per usual, thank you so much for all of your tremendous analysis today. We'll have you back on the program soon. I know we're going to hit a break. When we return, we're talking about how the victim's mother's testimony in the trial of Jason Chen could tip the scales of justice. And we're starting to see some movement this morning in our next live trial. The grandma accused in the hot car death of her granddaughter. We're going to go live to Florida in minutes. A Ponzi scheme and a deadly poisoning.
A former pharmacist already convicted in a federal fraud case.
Now stands trial for the murder of her husband.
The financial crime gives rise to motive.
Did Natalie Cochran kill to cover up other crimes?
We're not here to obtain convictions. We're here to obtain the truth.
Now a jury will decide her fate.
And Court TV will bring you every minute.
The Ponzi scheme murder trial. Live coverage begins this week, only on Court TV.
A mother's fight for justice could be tipping the scales in the suitcase by the river murder trial of Jason Chen. He's accused of stabbing and dismembering a young woman that he recently met on a dating app. Jasmine Pace was last seen in November of 2022 at Chen's apartment. Her mother, Katrina Bean, took the stand on Monday, testifying that she was so desperate to find her daughter that she broke into Chen's apartment.
I got a credit card from my wallet out of my car, and we broke into the apartment. I knew something. It was too close to where my daughter sent me a pin of her coordinates. The coordinates were almost exact.
Was anybody there?
No.
What did you start doing when you got into the apartment?
We opened up the door and let's see, cleaning supplies and a notebook. I opened the notebook, seeing that it was Jason Chen's apartment.
Now, police later found a knife and evidence of a large amount of blood in that apartment. This was found after the victim's family broke in. They told police that they located Pace's ID and travel bag there in Chen's apartment. And so, to be clear here, Katrina Bean has not been charged with breaking and entering. She's said to have done it multiple times, and she's a key state witness here. Let's talk about how she tips the scales of justice and how she acted as her own investigator. Let's bring in one of the very best investigators in the country, Manuel Gomez. Manuel, what do you think of this mom taking matters into her own hands?
Well, I first of all want to commend the mother. She's a hero to do that. Unfortunately, she was forced to take these vigilante tactics because she reported to the police and nothing was done. Okay, and this is the problem we have nationwide. If you're 18 or older, they just take a police report and don't take action because you're not required to return home. But I commend the prosecutor for not prosecuting this mom, because if she didn't take this action, this man would have been still on the run and she might not have gotten justice for her daughter.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Manuel, because in our discussion as we were talking about this case, many of us, myself included, were wondering, okay, so why hasn't the DA's office charged her? Because technically she broke the law. By her own admission, she broke the law. And I kept wondering, I'm not saying throw the book at her. I'm certainly not. She lost her daughter. That's not at all what I mean. But you wonder why the DA's office would even allow her to be crossed on that and all of that. Why not? But you just hit the nail on the head. Why? Because she discovered the evidence, didn't she?
And that's correct. You know, again, unfortunately, Julie, I think we're going to see more of these vigilante tactics happening throughout America on mothers who's, report their families missing because we are not taking action. Law enforcement procedure is the same across the nation. And Julian, I can tell you why. Because this procedure of how to deal with missing persons is copied from the NYPD Patrol Guide, which is the largest police force in the United States of 38,000. So many of the states copy their protocols, and this is why they didn't take action. So it wasn't that the Chattanooga Police Department was incompetent. It was just the fact that they were following their protocol, which is ineffective. And again, this mom, to me, is a hero. And the prosecutor, for not prosecuting her, is also a hero. But we need to stop and take action when somebody's reported missing. We need to stop losing lives and start saving them. Action is needed.
Manuel, appreciate the insight. I want to play a clip for you. This is from the cross-examination of Katrina Bean, because the defense, of course, hit hard on the fact that there were things moved around inside of the apartment.
You said that you didn't move anything around the apartment, did you?
No.
Do you know anyone else that did?
I don't know.
Did anyone in what the state described as your search party, do you know if they went into the apartment without you?
I don't know.
Okay, so Manuel, help me out here. Looking at this from the defense perspective, acknowledging they've got a point. If evidence was tampered with in any way, could be problematic in getting a clean conviction here. What do you say to that, the defense contention that mom might have gotten in the way and disrupted evidence in this case?
I think you're 100% correct, Julie. Mom, 99% tampered with the evidence, because no mother's going to walk into an apartment and now grab the items and search around and look through it. But you got to look at something. No matter how much she disturbed the crime scene, which she did, no matter how much she damaged crucial evidence at that crime scene, she did. But there is one key evidence, Julie, here that makes this case a slam dunk for the prosecution, and that is Jason Chin's phone showed exactly the location to where her body was stuffed in that bag, in that suitcase. And Julie, not only that, but he handcuffed her wrist to her ankles. He had her in a fetal position, tied up. This was first-degree murder. And that evidence alone, regardless of the mother destroying the crime scene, because I believe the mother did, but this evidence is a slam dunk for the prosecution.
Manuel, I love your analysis. I want more of it. We're about out of time, but I have to ask you one last really quick question. Just have about 30 seconds. She used a credit card to break in. How impressive is that?
Well, I would like to hire her because she does exactly what we do. So God bless her.
Very
She's another
impressive.
PI in the making.
Another PI, yep, another Manuel Gomez in the making. You're the best, Manuel. Thank you so much for all of your analysis. We'll see you again soon. We're going to hit a break, friends. That is all for this episode of Opening Statements. You can watch it again if you want. You can share the episode. Go to CourtTV.com, click on the Shows tab to do that. When we come back, Court TV Live begins. We're going live to Florida. You can see the judges on the bench. We're getting ready to start the trial of a grandmother accused in the hot car death of her own granddaughter. And by the way, this is the second baby to die under this grandmother's watch. This is going to be a contentious trial, and we're going to see it all kick off in a matter of minutes. So go ahead, fill up your coffee. We got a 4-minute break straight ahead. We'll see you on the other side here on Court TV Live.